And finally, Mr. Cole Hornaday, what do you got for us?
Well, I'm going to sort of like do a review of the entire Little Depressed Boy series. I'm going to try and keep it brief.
Just a little review.
Just a little review. So, Little Depressed Boy, I'll give you a little personal backstory. Our friend Jim Jewell went to the, I think it was Half Price Books paper bag sale a couple months back. I never make it to those. I don't need to because Jim goes there and gets the best stuff for me or shares it with me, which is all, because he also, it's too early on a Saturday morning, y'all. I'm not going to get up and go in there with my brown paper bag and forage. I'm not in the mood. I want to sleep. So he came back with the first two trades of Little Depressed Boy. He handed them to me at the college, and he's like, "You got to check this out." And I'm looking at it going, I do not want to read your sad little emo comic book, Jim. I don't want to read it. So I read the first one. I'm like, oh, this is really charming. Because what I didn't realize is that, I was in the mood for something that was a much smaller scope. So the story of Little Depressed Boy, it's written by S. Stephen Struble and drawn by SINA GRACE. It's all set in semi-rural, it's Amarillo, Texas. I don't know much about Texan culture, but it's set in a relatively small college town. And the series was published by Image Comics between 2011 and 2014. There are five trades that cover like the miniseries and stuff like that. There's an early, there's like an early like a zero trade before the character was developed. So Little Depressed Boy, he's in his 20s. All the characters are in their 20s. You'd think that would turn me off, but I found them to be incredibly relatable, and I got caught up, and I wound up tracking down all 5 volumes and reading the whole series. And this is probably a series that you would think would be more like Fantagraphics fare, but it's not. It's Little Depressed Boy it's not all about his mental health. It's not fixating on his anxiety disorder or his depression. It's just him going through daily life. He likes his indie rock bands. He likes his comic books. He has a big heart, and his best friend is like a sideshow blockhead, like the old Jim Rose sideshow stuff from the '90s, or hammers a nail in his face, at bars and things, and he has. Not a lot happens in these. Little Depressed Boy, he looks like a rag doll. And it's just this conceit that Little Depressed Boy, they call him Little Depressed Boy, or LDB. Actually, they all call him LDB. And they all recognize that he's this rag doll, that he's got a mouth that's sewn out of yarn. And every once in a while, someone will talk about him being made out of fabric. And, and I think there are probably issues about his fingers and stuff. But, he works in a movie theater, and, he just lives day to day, doesn't go to school, doesn't have a lot of ambition. Sometimes it's just enough to get out of the house and go do things. But it's not a lesson in mental health and mental health survival in the modern age. It's just a really charming kind of slice of life story. He meets one girl named Jazz, and she's kind of wackadoo. And the more he's dealing with Jazz, and he's having the best time with her because she's big and she's boisterous and she's full of energy. And they go out on like 4 dates, and he's thinking, I'm really into this girl. And then they go to a party, and she introduces him to her boyfriend.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I dated that chick. I know that personality. And then he finally, by the end of the series that has been printed, I think Struble said at one point in 2016 that the book has not been canceled. It's on a hiatus. So he falls in love with a young woman named Jazz, who is his manager at the movie theater where he works, which is, that's a no-no because no fraternizing. But they have this really sweet relationship. She's going to college. He works at the movie theater. And not a lot happens beyond you get to know these people, and I really like them. Mm-hmm. And it was actually really refreshing to read these stories that don't demand a lot of your attention, after dealing with like big epic monster brawls and superhero punch-ups. And it's like, wow, I thought this was going to be a waste of my time, and it was going to be self-indulgent, and I was going to be depressed by reading stories about a little depressed boy. But I actually found it to be invigorating, charming, and uplifting. And if you can find the books, they're all out of print, but they're not particularly valuable, and they're not hard to find, and I do recommend them.
Oh, that's quite the plug for Little Depressed Boy.
Little Depressed Boy.
Yeah, thank you, Cole.
You're welcome.